rook g1. So we're going to do the orientation and say what is going on here. So Harald, right, if you look at this position and you would do the orientation, what would you say is going on in this position? Ah, Ben, you're also here. Thanks for joining. So we have this position. Material is roughly equal, yeah? Yeah. So if you think about it, right, what is the threat of white in this position? So we will look first at the opponent's threat in this position. Harold, what do you think? So, right, the queen on h7 is pinning the pawn on f7 to the king on e7. So the pawn on f7 is a poor defender, which means that white can do what? Rook takes g6, right? Yes. Yes, exactly, because of the pin. So that's the threat of the opponent. But now the question is like, how do we continue? And then the bishop on c6 is kind of blocked. But there is an interesting possibility, right? So, I mean, if we think it now, so let's see, right, what's going on here in this position. So because there's an interesting possibility, so it feels like a rook takes g1 is like a logical move to get rid of the threat of rook takes g6. But thinking about the inactivity of the bishop on c6, is it possible here to play queen takes f2? What do you think? So queen takes f2, right? So my idea was queen takes f2, and then rook takes g6, right? Because the rook on g1 is 2 times under attack. So queen takes f2, rook takes g6. And then I was thinking about queen takes f3 check. Is there any merit to that line? Because suddenly this bishop on c6 is coming alive, right? So the idea that I had is to play after rook g2, bishop takes e4, attacking the queen and threatening mate on f1. So let's see if I can show that, right? So I was thinking about queen takes f2, and then queen takes f3, with the idea if the rook returns to g2 to play bishop takes e4 with an attack of the bishop and here, and also threatening queen f1 checkmate. But we have to verify, and I didn't consider, I think the strongest move by white would be king g1, right? So is there a mate after king g1? It's also, right, if we would think about queen takes f2, rook takes g6, in that position white has rook takes g6. Ben, I need your help. What do you think? Somehow I have the feeling, right, after a rook takes g1, king takes g1, perhaps we can continue with just queen g5, but the king goes back to h1, and then what? How do we continue? I don't feel that we have immediate entry, but perhaps the king is so bad, but it somehow it feels that it's the wrong direction. So if we play rook takes g1, king takes d1, I'm a bit concerned about, yeah, I liked it too, but I cannot get it to work completely, right? So the question is, so I don't know how to continue here, right? I mean, I was thinking about queen g5, but then the king just goes in the corner and the bishop stays bad, and I cannot get to f3, right? So let's do it one more time. Queen takes f2, right? Crazy move. Rook takes g6. Queen takes f3. I think we don't have to be concerned about, oh, so you have a better alternative than taking there. Yes, thank you, Ben. Right, that's why we're doing the puzzles together, right? So, queen takes f2, rook takes g6. And now Ben says, we can first check so the king cannot go to g1. That's a brilliant idea, because then the rook has to interpose, and then we take on f3, the rook has to interpose, and we get back to the line that was winning. Excellent. Excellent. Yes. I have a rating here of 2720, and that's, I don't know how I got there. I think by solving everything almost correct. Anyway, so we're going for queen takes f2, right? We found it together. All right, very good. Queen takes f2. All right, and now not queen takes f3, but queen f1, right, like Ben said. And then we take on f3. And we solved it. Excellent, right? So let's continue. So let's do the orientation. Black is a boatload down in material, right? So it has to be, we have to find a mate. And I mean, also the rook on d7 is under attack, the queen is under attack, so it's like we have to look at forcing moves. And yeah, I mean, so what are the forcing moves, right? We have queen takes here, queen d2, and rook d2. Those are the kind of the forcing moves that you start looking at for checks. So somehow I like queen takes c1 as the first alternative to look at, because so you look at rook d2, queen takes c2, but I'm attracted to queen takes c2 somehow, because after king f1 the rook can go to d1, right? So if this happens, then we have rook d1, and then we have good cooperation between the two pieces. So let's see what can happen. But after queen c2, there can be, of course, queen e2 interpose, and then there's rook d2, and then black wins the queen against the rook, but the question is even there whether it's sufficient. So that would make a case for rook d2. Rook d2, where well, I like the step book puzzles better. They because I mean many of these positions are so. I mean, I don't feel that they are like. Yeah, that's what I was thinking too, Ben. I don't think that some puzzles are like it feels like they're from a blitz game, right? Not like an over the board game. So I think the puzzles from the chess steps are better curated. So I would stick to that, Harold. All right, so let's have a look. So queen takes e2, yeah, I mean, now I was saying the same, Ben, like queen c2, queen e2, rook d2. let's continue the line a bit, because it's not done yet, right? Yeah, it feels, it's not clear if it's sufficient material. So we have rook d2 then, right? It's the second line. King has only one move. King has to go to e3. So we have rook d2, king e3. And now what? Do we have any checks actually left there? The rook has no checks, and the queen has no checks. f4, yeah. f4 is a check. Okay, so we have rook d2, f4. Yes, and after king e4, we have queen takes c2, and after king f4, let's see what we can do. But the only thing I don't like about f4 is that, yeah, and it's like you suddenly, I mean, if you think about king takes f4, whoa, okay. So we have rook d2, king e3, f4, king takes. And now what? What is counterintuitive is that suddenly you're not having the pawn taking away squares of e4 and g4. We also have queen d4 check. Queen d4, yeah, so that was another candidate move that Ben was mentioning. Queen d4. So many possibilities for the king. King e1, king e2, king g2, king f3. King f3 looks like it's queen e4 check, and then the rook to the second rank. So that's not a possibility. Queen d4. Okay, so let's go back to the old line. So we started with a rook d2, king e3, f4, king takes f4, rook d4. Okay, so we can say the king is here and the rook is here. King g5, queen h5 checkmate, yes. King e3, queen d2, king f2, rook d4, rook f4 checkmate, is that what you mean? But is rook f3 or not? So let's see. So king g5 is not possible. King e3, queen d4, king e3, king f2, after queen d2 the king cannot, oh, king f3 you mean? Yes. Yes. Yes, yes. Yeah, but but I think you're right? Because the king is on f3. So, I mean, so there is no king f, he cannot interpose. But I mean, I was just a bit confused by the notation. So we started with rook d2, king e3, f4. So did we look at the other moves, right? Is king e3 the only move? Yes. f4, I mean, cannot, I mean, the king goes to another square and then king e4. Then we have rook d4 checkmate. Yes, so rook d2. f4. Right, are we sure? Let's verify. f4. If the king has only one square, at e4, a rook d4, mate. So the king has to take, then rook d4 back, and then queen d2. Okay. Rook d4. King has only one square, e3, queen d2. Rook has only one square, king f3, rook f4. Where would I be without Ben? Excellent. All right, let's continue. King g8. All right, another position where white is down a lot of material. And so we have to go for a mating attack. And that's at least how it feels like. I mean, we can pick up a piece with queen e6, of course. But let's see which checks we have. We have a check on e6. And does black have any checks in this position? Not yet, right? Yes. Queen takes c2 is covered by the queen. So, but let's try to figure it out. Queen e6, check. Yeah, my candidates are too. Yeah, we're rook down, so we have to go for the king, right? The nice thing about queen g4 is that knight g5 afterwards is protected. And there might be actually, okay. So queen g4 looks, because queen e6, king h8, and we don't have any checks left, right? Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. That's why I like queen g4 better, because of the coordination between the knight and the queen. Right? So in this case, yeah, queen e6, king h8, and then what, right? So queen g4, let's look at that one first. Queen g4, right? Because then also, where can the black king go? King f7. King f7. Queen g4, king f7. I'm trying to figure out how we make sure that king doesn't escape over the black squares, like king e7, king d8. And Harold, if you're still here, I hope you check out my YouTube channel. There are a lot of chess, a lot of videos for the step method. I've been summarizing all the concepts in the step method on my YouTube channel. And also some analysis exercises from the steps method, where I go in detail over this method of orientation and then the calculation. Yeah, it's white to move. Yes, and we're panache. What we're doing is first the orientation, right? So we said we're a rook down, so we have to deliver mate. We have two candidate moves, queen e6 and queen g4, and we have a feeling that queen g4 is better coordination between the knight and the queen. But the question is, after queen g4, let's start with king f7. If the king runs to e7 and let's say towards e7 and d8, how do we, what's our mating pattern? Yeah, queen g4, take the bishop. And queen e6 is take the bishop, right? And that's like, right, I mean, then queen takes c2. Might be, it's like a backup option, right? But first we try to see if we can do anything with the king. Queen g4, king f7, queen g6, let's try that first, right? King goes to e7, only move. All right, then we have queen e6 and we pick up the bishop with check. That's not bad. Queen g4, king f7, queen e6, king e7, queen e6. All right, and then king d8, check, and it continues, right? Then there's only one move, and we go here, the king has to go here, and we pick up the bishop here, right? And the king is in check and has to return. And then, right, and then we can continue our attack. We still have all our checks, I think. And we might even do something quiet, like f6 or something. Yeah, f6, exactly. Yeah, I was thinking the same. Perhaps we can just give the pawn. Good thinking, Ben. You're on a roll. Yes. All right, so let's see. But I'm not longer concerned about king f7, to be honest. Right? So what about if the king goes the other way? King h8, right? Can we... King h8, what do we do then? The queen is on g4, and the king goes to one of those two squares. We can get closer, right, with queen h5, queen g6. And then I was actually thinking, right, can we just play something like, put the queen on g6 and play knight g5, allow queen takes c2, and then go with the king to f1 and then g2? Or because does black have any checks left? Or is it only, you could say, one check and it's done? Queen g4. Okay, so let's just do one at a time, right? Queen g4. Let's say king h8. Queen check. King doesn't really matter, right? here, queen g6, king goes back. So in the end, right, if we just summarize it, we are playing this, and the king is here. And now what? And I was thinking, like, is it possible there? We also have f6, and then the queen on g6 is defending c2. That's also a sexy move. Threatening mate on g7. Knight g5 is knight, but f6 again, right? Because then the queen on g6 is defending c2. There are no checks at all. So I don't have to think about queen takes c2, king f1, and then if anything happens, like queen d3, queen g4, and then queen e4, and then I was thinking that, but f6 is like very nice. All right, let's do it. King. All right, so here we go. Queen g6, king e7, king e6, right? Yeah, that was the idea, f6. Again, f6. So we had here queen e6, king e7, queen e6, right? So let's continue. Okay, and then we're going to play queen e6, right? And then probably it says you have solved the puzzle. The rough part, but it's also the easy part, right? Yes, because it's like you only have to look at checks, so the candidate moves are very limited. Yeah, it's rough and easy at the same time. So let's have a look. Yeah, queen e6, let's verify, right? We're into this line, we can execute everything. Queen e6, king d8, only move. Queen takes d6, rook is hanging, so yeah, queen e6. Okay, take the bishop, right? Solved. All right, we're going to do one more, and then we'll leave it for what it is. So this was a test stream. So is the sound clear? I mean, it's a very simple setup, right? It's almost Zen mode. But I mean, you don't see ratings, we just see what we're doing. Right, and it's no, I'm not asking for subscribers or anything. All right, so what happened? The queen took on d2. Again, right? I mean, let's say if you look to this position, we are a boatload of material behind. The knight on e6 is hanging. The bishop on h4 is pinning the rook on g3. And so, I mean, is there any other move than rook takes d2? Doesn't feel like it, right? And does white have any threats, actually? So let's say, I mean, the obvious move, right? I mean, if you think about we're queen behind, and we are a rook behind, so it feels like this is almost the move that you have to play. And then there are two. Where will the king go? What are we thinking? So I was thinking, like, after king e1, attacking the rook, we can go to d3. And then we still have the pin and we win the rook. And we have 6 pawns against 4. So easy win, right? So we have to think about if there are any other. So rook takes d2. What is a more stubborn defense? So if the king goes to f1 or e1, what do we do? Do we take the knight or do we take the rook? Yeah, it's like it feels too obvious, but so we have to be concrete, right? So we have to just do the lines. Rook takes d2, king e1, we said rook d3. And then, yes, so that's not a possibility. So we have to think about what do we do after rook takes d2, king f1, right? Do we just take the bishop and let the knight escape? Or do we take the knight because the rook is very bad? Or it depends, right? But I think king e3, yes. Yes, it's interesting. Rook takes d2, king e3. Yes, that's the right move to consider. The other ones are not so interesting. But of course, king e3, the interesting part is that there's also bishop g5 and certain variations with the rook on c1 hanging. So here we go, right? Rook takes d2, king e3. That's kind of forced. And then what? I mean, if you think about a real life game, right? If you just think about the line rook takes d2, king e3, and you would play bishop takes g3, king takes d2, and then f takes e6. That feels like I'd rather be on the black side there, right? Because pawn on e5 is going to fall, and then I have two passes. Yeah, bishop d5, but bishop g5, right? The knight is covering bishop g5 for the moment. I agree, that's a very interesting idea. Mustafa, welcome. You say good. What is good? I'd like to know. The sound is good. But how about the puzzle? Rook takes d2, king e3. What do we do? Mustafa, we need your help. Okay. Rook takes d2, king e3. Yeah, the knight on g5. The knight on e6 is protecting g5. King e3. This time no f4, right? So, what do we do? I mean, we can play rook takes b2. Yeah, so you say f takes e6, king takes d2, bishop g5, right? But then, yes, yeah, but you get a bishop. So let's do the first move, right? Make it ourselves a little bit simpler. Here we go. All right. Now we have to see. How do we continue? So this was the critical line. I agree. Ah. After rook takes b2, right, look at after rook takes b2, right? We are threatening to take the knight. After rook takes b2, so it's like almost like we're threatening to take the rook. Where can the rook go? The rook is trapped, right? So what is the best move? What would be the best move for our rook? Because it's also, right, I'm thinking it's almost made. And after rook b2, we are threatening something like rook b3. So how is... Rook takes b2. My question to you is, what is white going to do? King f4, rook f2, followed by bishop e3. Ben, what do you think of rook takes b2? Yeah, if the knight moves, I mean, we can take the rook or we can do a bishop check. But I mean, it's also, I mean, I was thinking like, it's almost like we have a, I mean, I'm also thinking about if we have a mate, right? If you think about bishop g5, what are the escape square? I mean, it's only d4, and it's a pity that we just can. Hello from Turkey. I visited many times. Yes, love the food. We try to sack the exchange, then rook b3 at the end is unpleasant. Yeah, I mean, but the question is like, why? The only question I have is like, I like that move, but are there other moves? The only thing, yeah, the interesting part is, right, if you think about it, rook d5, there, for instance, there is uh, something like knight c7. So there's actually not, I think, another move where the rook, this rook on d2 is safe. Right? So I think rook takes b2 is the only one where this rook cannot be attacked by the knight, so there's no gain of tempo. I like the fact that we have rook b3 as an option. So rook takes b2. King f4, and then we have rook f2. King has to go away, and then we can take on g3. So everything works out, right? Hi, Mahmoud. Thank you for joining. Appreciate that you're here. I hope you also check my channel. A lot of educational videos. All right. So, are we missing any move by our opponent? Right? So, no, I'm not. Okay. Okay, Ben, thank you for joining. We have to take, right? No, we can do an intermediate check, but I don't think there's anything special, so we just take it. Okay. Thank you very much. This was my test stream. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you will be back. And I'm happy that the chat worked. And thank you, Mustafa and Mahmoud and Panache and Harald for joining. And I hope to see you next time. And check out my YouTube channel with all the steps, instruction and explanations. Thank you. Bye-bye.